Hello, everybody. Welcome to Frame Trap. On this episode, I am joined by Brandon Jones.
Hell yeah.
And Bradley Ellis.
Hello.
We're recording this, I think, 3 days before we do our deliberations, so we're right there. Always a big time of the year for us. By the way, I will be your host, Ben Moore. Should not forget to say that. But how are you guys feeling about 2020 Game of the Year? Is it different at all from the past?
Never
enough time, man.
We won't be in a room together, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a lot different this time.
Do you think not being in a room will make it go faster or slower?
Good question. I think it will be faster.
Oh, okay.
Just because I feel like sometimes we're in a room together, we just go off topic. We just ramble about stuff forever.
Yeah.
I'll put my money on slower then. We'll that's the spread.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Hoping faster.
But it always comes down to, some categories just take a super long time. And so it's there's always a possibility that we could finish that thing in 4 hours and be like, oh, we're all just kind of in agreement, but there's just never enough time. Like we do GOTYs after like everybody. And it's always like, I feel bad. Like, oh, it's so late, like we're really taking our time. And it's just like, I'm not going to be able to finish Hades. I'm not going to be able to finish Ori. I'm not going to be able, like 13 Sentinels, Ben, like I want to, I really want to check it out. I think I would really enjoy that game. Damn.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely not enough time to get to everything. But I think among all 8 of us, there'll be a pretty good spread.
Oh, yeah. I don't mean like
nice.
Everything. It's not a matter of playing every game that came out in 2020, but like it really starts to narrow down.
Yeah.
Starting in like mid-October, where you're like, okay, like it was that. Thank you for that Cyberpunk review, Ben. I was like, all right, put that on the shelf there. Cool. I'll get back to that later.
Yeah. There's really good stuff in that game, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just not. Yeah. You just got to pick and choose your battles.
Right. Totally. I think the thing that's kind of, and I've felt this way before about Game of the Year, but this year as well, I'm okay with like multiple things winning Game of the Year. It's like, I don't know, I haven't counted, but there's probably like 4 or 5 things, maybe 3 or 4, where if it wins, I'd be very happy. We'll see. I feel like Huber always has one that he like comes out swinging for, and that will change the nature of the discourse. We'll have to see. But speaking of games, I don't believe we've actually talked about it on Frame Trap, and both of you have been playing it, and that is Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Not playing it anymore.
Valhalla?
Yeah, Brandon finished it.
Yeah. How many hours did you spend on it, Brandon?
117.
Yeah.
Huber's like, you're not gonna do the DLCs? I'm like, no, Huber, I'm not gonna do the DLCs. I mean, maybe I will. I don't know. I didn't do it for Odyssey. Not for a second. I was like, I'm done.
Sorry, I was writing timestamps. What was that number again?
117.
Jesus.
Yeah,
I'm not playing this game. It's not gonna happen.
And I got like the way that so like there's 3 types of objects you can get. There's fortune, which is like money and armor and supplies and stuff. There's mysteries, which are the best. Like that's the stuff I really wanted to hunt. And then there's artifacts, so like documents and masks that you can give to a guy at your camp who can unlock statues that you can build. And like the white markers were the first one I knocked off, where I was like, I got to stop. And then like the gold circles, where I was like, I don't even like I'm not gonna level up my armor anymore. Like I got my dual daggers, I'm set, and I got the Raven armor. That's what I wanted the whole time. Like I'm good. I gotta stop. But it's so hard to just like go into an area and it's like there's a big chest in there. You just gotta figure out how to get in that chapel. I'm like, no, stop.
Yeah.
Brandon, I feel like anything that I play for over 100 hours, like I really gotta love it, which leads me to believe that you really love this game.
I loved exploring that world. Hell yeah. I mean, like that's and I took a vacation from Assassin's Creed, skipped over Origins, didn't finish Syndicate after Unity, and just fell in love with Odyssey again, and just kind of like dabbled in Odyssey to be like, okay, let me just get a sense of this game. And then I was like hooked. I'm like, damn, oh, man. And I kind of went into this knowing like, okay, well, if I loved Odyssey as much as I did, and Huber gave me one of those, like after he played for like 20 or 30 hours, when he was reviewing it, he just sent me a message on Slack. He's like, you're going to love this, John. So I was like, okay, all right. Like, I think I'll dig it. And like, you know, Norwegians, that's my clan. That's half of my lineage. And so you know, I've been to Norway. I've sailed the fjords. So it was neat going through that world and you know, seeing like London way back in the day, you know, and seeing words where I'm just like Snottinghamshire. Oh, Nottingham. Okay, you know.
Yeah.
I was doing the notes for the spoiler mode, and Google Docs kept being like, "Did you spell that right?" I'm like, "I did." Google Docs, calm down. You know? Grantonburgenshire, what is it? I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I played a fair bit of Odyssey, and I actually started it over multiple times, and I always just reach this point in Odyssey where I'm like, yeah, I'm really enjoying this, but I'm good. Like, I'm ready to move on. Just because I felt like it became a bit of a grind, which is definitely something that is noted against Odyssey. Do you think Valhalla, especially at that length, is guilty of the same thing, or does it manage to have better pacing?
As far as grinding in terms of skills, like you don't need, you know, like I don't know about you, Brad, but like I didn't do a lot of ability shuffling. Like I found like, okay, I want to set my arrows on fire. You know, like that part of my, you know, HUD, you know, that button press did not change the entire 100 hours, like, or at least the hours after I got that ability. And like I said, like once I maxed out the armor, I was like, I'm good. And I had way more supplies than I actually needed, you know, to level up my gear. And so, and it's just not that hard of a game. Like you really kind of have to find your own challenge in terms of like what you want to stealth. Like you don't really need to stealth that much.
You don't in the game at all.
There weren't a lot of fail states and missions. It was really like the most scared I was like there's just, you have to make decisions sometimes where it's like one of these three people is a traitor, or you're kind of in between this rock and a hard place and one of these guys has got to die. What are you going to do? Or like you got to appoint one of these people eldermen and you're like, they're all kind of unqualified, but I guess that guy. And, you know, so in some instances there are right, wrong answers. And in some instances it's just kind of what you want to do. And so that's where I was really tense. Whereas like the combat was always just like, not bad. Yeah. It was fun. It was fun working, dude, especially if you're a Viking. Like it's fun chopping heads off and stuff. But yeah, don't need to grind. For anybody that hasn't played it, it's like pick the armor you want, the weapons you want, maybe experiment a little bit, but you know, you don't need to go overboard.
It's definitely more action focused, I feel like, this time around, even more than Odyssey, which I don't really like. Like, I guess it makes sense because you're a Viking and everything, and they build it kind of around, like, raiding with your group, but this is kind of boring, man. Like, I do, like, 2 raids, and I'm like, kind of sick of this already.
Is it something that is pretty immediately boring, or is it after doing multiple of them that gets boring?
I mean, doing multiple, you know, you fight for a while, then like you're doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again.
Right.
And the combat's fine. I don't think it's bad or anything like that, but it's just not enthralling enough to me. Like in Assassin's Creed, I really love the sense of like danger and not wanting to get seen kind of thing. Definitely. I am playing on a harder difficulty too, which like kind of helps that. But I definitely feel like the game almost just encourages you more to just rush in, because you can summon your like horde of Vikings with you almost at a lot of these forts, so they can just rush in and distract a lot of the guys for you. So I don't get this sense of like sneaking in and trying to have to pick off these guys. Yes, you can, but you don't really have to, which kind of bums me out.
Yeah, that's a bummer for me as well, just because whenever I have the option, I feel like I like always focus on stealth. Yeah. And there is like a stealth tree, like there's a path you can go in Valhalla, so it's kind of a bummer that it doesn't feel all that necessary. But I have not done the raiding in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, so just kind of run me through what that process is like.
You're on your ship, which is cool a lot of times. You're on your ship, and you dock here, like, you say, okay, let's raid this. Everyone gets out, and you all rush towards whatever this village, and there's certain resources behind doors. You just go through, kill guards, and essentially collect the resources, and it ends.
And those are the resources you need to upgrade Ravensthorpe, which is your HQ.
So there is
the only place you can get those
to do it, which is cool. But yeah, just the act of doing it is not super fun for me.
Sure.
I don't know.
And one thing that I think my least favorite thing about that game, the most time I was like frustrated with it, was there were so many instances where because I just like to roam around in open world games. I'm just like, I'm gonna go over here and see what's there. It's fun. And I think Assassin's Creed does that really well. And there were so many instances where I'm like, why can't I get into this place? And it's like, oh, you got to do the mission. And I'm like, all right, well, then don't flag that I can even do it at all. You know, like, don't even have it be a thing. Don't even identify it that I'm missing it.
Yeah, that is a weird choice.
You know, it's like, just wait until, or just have a little thing that pops up that's like, you can't do this right now. Like, oh, thanks, cool. I think I looked that up like 6 different times. I was like, what the hell? Mm-hmm. And then I got to a point where I'm like, all right, I'll just finish the arc of each region, and then when I'm done with, they're like, you're done with this region, you finish the story. It's like, now I can go and, you know, pillage these other spots. And there's like big red doors that you can only like bang open with another person from your crew, and so like that kind of prevents you from getting in there by yourself and doing it. Like you need to bring the whole,
need your crew.
Yeah.
I know I've sound kind of harsh on this game, but I'm actually having a good time playing through this game despite its flaws. Like I just think the setting is really great. I love like being in England. I think it looks really great. Like the game looks beautiful almost sometimes, like the forest and everything. I'm enjoying going through, just seeing all these new things. Yeah, there's some frustrating parts where I'm just like, man, like why does everything have to be so difficult? Why can't I just go in this room? Like it feels like so many times there's like, ooh, this little puzzle thing to get through here. I'm like, Kate, I don't have to do this every time. Like every now and then it's fine, but every time.
What puzzle thing are you talking about?
Well, it's like, okay, well this door's locked, so figure out how to open this door. So you might have to go around and shoot something. Like that's fun. Or like figure out how to get to this thing, so you got to go around this way. Like that's fun every while, but sometimes I just wish it's a little more straightforward.
Sure.
So those moments feel a little more special to me. But yeah, man, I'm having a good time playing through this game. Like I said, the combat's not amazing, but I think it's decent enough. Sure. And on the harder difficulty, I think I do have to focus up, which is nice. A nice change. Like there's some optional guys you could fight, like that wander around, and some bosses that just like kicked my ass. Where I was like, oh shoot, I need to come back this much later, so I'm really appreciating that.
Do you feel like there's enough to the mechanics that you're having a good time? Like, because I know you can dual wield.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're utilizing a lot of skills, or there are like cool counters that you have to do?
Yeah, so you could like, I know you said you played some Odyssey. You can assign like certain skills to face buttons.
Yep.
You like your L2s and your face buttons is like range stuff, and your R2 is more melee stuff. So there's a lot you can kind of focus on. In
Odyssey, there was like a really powerful skill where like you could do a stealth attack, but at like range, like you could zip to them like through a spear. Yeah,
I think there might be something like this in the game, but I don't have it yet.
You have what they. You can stealth a guy, and then if there's a guy nearby, you can, and he doesn't see you, kill the first guy. Like, you can chuck an axe.
Yeah, oh, cool!
Just like
that's
knock
pretty
him
cool.
off his feet.
Yeah, it is. Cool.
Yeah, that's very very satisfying.
Yeah, I actually like the main character too so far.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to.
Did you do male or female, Jones?
I did male because Hubert did female, and I knew we were gonna do the spoiler mode, so I was like,
I did male too, and I'm actually like liking this character. I'm like, oh, it's refreshing.
Hubert said, and I would say like the characters in particular were kind of the biggest thing for Odyssey for me. I really liked Cassandra quite a bit. I believe Huber said that this was his favorite Assassin's Creed story, or at the very least, he had a lot of praise for the story.
Well, it's Vikings.
Yeah, that's true. But as not being Huber, Vikings. Do you feel that way?
Yes, I think some of it's really good. I'm like 30 something hours into this game.
Yeah.
One thing is, time has flown by me playing this game. I will just wander around and I'm like, oh shit, I've been playing for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Kind of thing like that. But I like the story so far. Like a lot of it's kind of divided up here. You go to this region, you solve this region's like questline story thing, then you go to the next region. But I've been enjoying some of them. So far I haven't gotten bored of it yet. I want to keep going, but like, how long is this game? I don't know. Like, will I make it to the end? I hope I make it in. I've beaten like every main line, so I probably will. But I'm enjoying it. Then I would say more than I did Odyssey. I thought Odyssey was okay, but the navigation in Odyssey kind of annoyed me. From what I remember, is like a lot of islands and like having to sail to a lot of islands. Like, yeah, you have your boat in this, but it doesn't feel as mandatory a lot of times.
Yeah.
Especially because you can upgrade your horse, which is cool, and get like more stamina. And I got it so I could ride it through water, so I don't have to get off the horse. I'm like, oh, this is sick.
It's funny, and obviously this can change, but I feel like all the allies like have those games where like they know that they're in. Like Huber is always going to play Assassin's Creed, and for me, it's just like I might check it out. I might not. I don't know.
Sure.
Versus like Monster Hunter, where it's like, I'll play that forever.
Yeah, of course.
And it's just interesting how those decisions get made over the years.
I think maybe because Assassin's Creed games are so daunting now for a lot of people. They're huge. Like, there's so much you can do in these games and spend so much time.
Yeah.
I wonder if people like are intimidated by that factor. But I also think if you're kind of the person that only buys a few games of the year, man, you can get a lot of value.
Totally. Yeah. And what you're describing, Brad, of just like having that game that you just kind of lose track of time with and wander around and explore a beautiful world, you know, especially right after next gen, like that's really cool. That's really, really cool.
And I think one of the things that I haven't, again, didn't play Origins, but I think that Odyssey and Valhalla does really well is Odyssey is, I mean, you know, and not necessarily inspired by, but obviously evoking like the Odyssey, you know, like that the grand text, and you are exploring all these islands of Greece, and you are, like you're in between these major, you're in the middle of a war essentially, and so it's when you look at the map, you can really see these two sides, and you can really know like what side of the war you're on, like in whatever town that you're in, and in this, like you are. This is a conquest of England. Like you are going, to the far, like snowy, tips to like the very bottom, like London, just on top of the Thames. And like, so it is a big undertaking what you were doing. Like with the end, when I saw that conquest map and it's just all ravens, like, wow, that was not like, I don't remember any of that. It was like, no, that was a big story that I just went through. So it's not like a story that kind of goes on and you're like, where is why is this taking so long? It's like, obviously it's taking so long because each region is its own complete separate, day-long thing.
Yeah.
I like that they at least are backing up these just massive campaigns for a reason. It's not just like, oh, it's just this crime story, and like, okay, cool, and then it's like 200 hours later you're like, why? It's like, okay, yeah, I'm a Viking going to whoop England, and you spend an hour or two in Norway before you even get there, and I'm building up this settlement, and so there's just a lot of things for you to look back when you're done and be like, wow, that I have something to show for all of the work that I did.
Yeah.
I feel like I already know the answer to this question, but when you're doing the raids, is there any sort of like strategic element of like divvying up different soldiers to different locations or commands that you can issue?
No, none of that.
Okay.
You can like select soldiers and like make your own kind of raiding party. You can recruit people from the game doing.
Is it kind of like Odyssey, how you recruit people for your ship?
I think so. Yeah, I don't remember too well, but you can recruit characters too.
Do you think that has a pretty significant effect on raids, or like you don't have to worry about it? You'll be.
I don't know. I never even think about what they're doing.
Okay.
Honestly.
Okay.
Every now and then when you finish a campaign, someone's like, I'm going to come back and live with you. And I'm like, cool. And then I've just never noticed that they were there. Like never, like, yeah, like maybe they're in my boat. I don't know. I definitely felt a little more of a kinship with my crew in Odyssey than the Vikings that were in this one. I loved them. Like, and there were some really fun moments, like cutscenes that were in Ravensthorpe where like, some random Vikings in the background would get a couple lines of dialogue, and like they were always fun. Like it was the Viking way is a good vibe, and Ravensthorpe has a good vibe. And there's losses, and there's some shopkeepers and stuff like that you can go on like campaign. Go on little kind of side stories with and stuff, and like you get like a pet, or like at one point I got a cat that I could have on the boat. So like you get these little bits, but
that's pretty awesome.
It's nothing like I remember like when I played Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, like I would like color code each member by their rank, and then like know who I was assigning and how long they'd been in. And this is just like, yay, more dudes in my boat.
Yeah.
It was kind of OP in Brotherhood, but it was pretty sick just like calling in assassins and having them take it. Yeah, it was pretty.
I'm so sad they've never even come close to that. I thought Syndicate was maybe going to do that again, but they never really brought that back.
Shout out to the mini games though. I like them in this game. There's like, this like dice game you play. It's fun.
Orlog.
There's the drinking game, which is really fun. I love. And there's like this game of wits you do with people where you kind of like have a rhyming battle with them.
Flighting. That's my favorite.
Yeah, flighting, and it has a like actual purpose. It kind of increases your like charm stat almost. So you can use some extra dialogue and conversations. Like I was able to talk some woman down out of me having to pay her silver for something. So I was like, oh, there is a reason to do this.
And it's fun.
Yeah,
and Eivor's reactions are legit. Like when you pick
Yeah.
those options, you're like, what's he going to say? And like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, you've talked your way out of that.
Yeah.
Nice. And those, flighting was some of my favorite conversational stuff in the game. And it made sense that like I'm proving that I'm good at talking, and it's fun because there's always like the one answer that's clearly wrong, and then the two that rhyme with what they said, but one of them actually goes with the timing of their words. You know, so you're like, oh, that's the answer. Okay. And so it was fun. Like as somebody who did a lot of like musical theater, I was like, I'm good at this. I was really proud.
When you're doing that and you're trying to figure out like the right words to pick, are you timed? Like, do you?
Yeah, usually there's like sometimes
I don't think so.
Time limit.
Oh, okay.
Maybe like one time you were timed, but no, you can just kind of stare at them and.
Gotcha.
Might be wrong. I don't know. Maybe it's half and half. I don't actually remember.
Isn't that funny how like, because that happens to me sometimes too, where like you play a game a whole bunch and somebody asks you like a question about it, and you just are like, actually, I'm not sure. Like maybe
you are timed in that game at parts, but I think most of the flying battles you're not. You can just kind of stare at it.
Brad and Brandon, I believe as well. Another twofer for you guys. I believe you've both been playing, and Brad, you finished Half-Life Alyx.
Yeah.
One of my favorite games of the year. I feel like I've gotten...
that game.
Definitely one of my favorite too.
I feel like I've been able to talk about it a lot, but just give me your thoughts about the return of Half-Life.
Sure, man. Like, I'm not even a huge Half-Life fan. Like, I've played some of 1, I've played 2, and I've played episode 1, but I've seen what happens in episode 2 and everything, so I knew what was going on, and it's just like, man, was I sucked into this world. Obviously, you're immersed more because it's VR, but I just think this doesn't feel like a cheap kind of like VR knockoff game. You know what I'm saying? It this is like a real deal Half-Life game.
Yes.
This is not just some weird spin-off, like, doesn't really matter. This game matters a lot, dude. And I was so impressed with how many situations. I have a few gripes with things, like the puzzles, I think they kind of introduce them sometimes too much.
Are you talking about the puzzles where like you have to open up like an upgrade
like the
thing?
To upgrade your thing is like, I was like, why do I have to do this puzzle every single time?
It's my biggest complaint in the game, for sure. Yeah.
Like, the puzzles, I think, are fun, and they're short enough, where I'm just kind of like, but it kind of did get a little annoying. But, like, man, even the shootouts in this game were, like, so incredibly immersive.
Yeah.
Like, I was literally hiding behind cover, like, standing up, just being like, oh, boom, 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 boom. I'm like, oh, man, I was crouching, like, literally crouching, just peeking over, shooting. Man, it was great.
That shotgun, when you get a good shot in, you know, or just sneak up on a person.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it correct me if I'm wrong, Ben. I don't know. Can you play this game by like actually moving, or is it teleportation is the way?
I did it by moving.
You can do you can do smooth movement. I don't like doing that. I prefer the teleportation.
I did teleportation.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know you can do both. That makes it even better.
You can do both at the same time too, also.
But even just teleporting, like one thing that I thought they pulled off really well in the teleporting is, I don't know if Ben, remembered like the official name of these things, but like those like mouths that just had their tongues are like hanging from the ceiling, and they'll catch stuff. And
I know what they're called, and you're
I'm like, oh well, I'll just teleport past these, and like no, you have to be very clear of those things to like teleport past. But it's such a fun mechanic to just be like, okay, there's a thing I want to grab. It's right underneath one of those. All right, here, eat this bucket, punk. And then you throw it, and the bucket goes up. You're like, okay, I got 2 seconds. All right, grab the thing. Okay, get out of there. Like, and so many clever moments where like they would have, like, there was one time there's like these metal head crabs that you have to wait until they pop up to like shoot them underneath, or wait until they fall over and you can shoot them. This one, I was like really trying to conserve ammo, and I'm just dodging him. So I would like set it to teleport and be like, come on, like a bull, and then it would jump at me, and then I would teleport right when it would jump. And then I managed to get it to jump at me, and it got caught on one of those things, and it pulled it up and ate it. I was like, yes. Such like a nice victory.
Those metal head crabs, I think, are kind of like a perfect example of this, because on the last Frame Trap, I talked about Medal of Honor Above and Beyond, and I definitely felt like that game was having me do too much, to the point where like I felt like VR was kind of a hindrance, like trying to hold the weapon with both hands and look
Right.
down this iron sight. And I
Sure.
feel like those iron head crab or those metal head crabs are a perfect example of me thinking like that was going to be a huge pain in the ass or like not fun. But I feel like with like the reticules that they give you and kind of the information that you have in the world, they're just a fun challenge. Like they take effort, but they're not like annoying. And I feel like so much of Half-Life Alyx kind of fits into that, where everything is just so well designed and it's aware of what you're going through as a player and your own limitations being in VR, that it manages to be immersive and intense without being cumbersome.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that helps with that, without being cumbersome, Ben, is the gravity gloves.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
What an incredible idea
Oh,
that just
man.
made everything so much easier.
And contextualized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they talk about those gloves all the time. Like they talk about that tech, and you know I forget his name, but like Randall or something who's talking to you, like he's super proud of him, and yeah, and that just feels it's crazy how because I played some VR games where it's like reloading's like come on.
Yeah.
And by the end of that, like you get like this upgrade for the pistol where you can like put in a clip, pop out the clip, put in another clip, and then you can have 2 full clips in the gun. And I'm just like not even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay, ready, you know. And just to see something so ridiculously far in the distance and be like, hey, that got it. I'm like, oh, that feels fantastic.
And not only is it super convenient, but it just makes going through the world that much more enjoyable because they get really clever about where they put ammo clips and like all of that sort of stuff. And so you're just having a blast, like going through, you know, throwing things off the shelves, looking in trash cans, that sort of thing. Yeah. It's really, really fun. And Brandon, you mentioned like the ease of reloading, and you're totally right. Like it becomes sort of second nature as you go through the game, which is great. But it's also like enough of like a thing that you're doing, like it takes enough time that there would still be moments where like I'd run out of a clip in the middle of a fight and I'd be like sweating.
Yeah.
And so it adds to the tension in that way, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, definitely one of my favorite parts of the game is reloading is easy and intuitive, but it's still a big deal when you have to like kind of prepare for it during encounters. Like, man, you run out of like shells in a fight, you're like, oh shit, let me flip this open, put a few in, try to like maneuver and flip it back up. It's so good.
Yeah. And there are parts of my brain would just break and I'd be like, I just forgot, I'm pressing all the wrong buttons, and I'm just like, all right, reload, like, you know, that's on me.
I think it was smart, Ben, too, how you're saying how Medal of Honor was kind of like almost too cumbersome to play with these guns. I think it was smart to make everything kind of one-handed in this game. Or like you could do there's a few moments where I had both hands up at the same time. Like I had a flashlight in my left hand, like my pistol up in the right hand. But I think it was just so much easier to do things. I was never battling with my, like, just to hold my gun right. Like everything felt as it should. And having that other hand open allowed you to worry about things like, oh, okay, there's a grenade right here. Like I can use my free hand to, you know, use the gravity gloves, throw it back.
Well, not only that, but like you got the 2 pockets, but then you still have that hand. And like there were parts where I'm like, okay, I got a health thing and a grenade in my pockets, and here's another grenade. I'm just going to hold on to it. you know? And then I'm like, and you can still, because it's the analog stick that's teleporting you, which a lot of VR games do, but it's like, so I'm going to keep the trigger down and go up this ladder, you know, cause like these grenades are just too valuable. You know, like I could take out 2 or 3 guys with this thing. And so it's like, let me see if I can get up this staircase and around and still hold on to one. Like I'm right at the end, you know, there's 11 chapters and I'm like right at the end of the 10th. And so it's like, I'm going to finish that. Got some
Brandon, that last chapter.
Tonight, so I can't wait. But I'll probably finish it tomorrow. But it like, I probably have way more ammo than I need. I restarted so many times. If I would just get scratched, I'd be like, nope. Really restart, you know, like I'd get to like health things, be like, I don't need health because I just, you know, went through that perfectly. But so satisfying to, you know, to go through a thing, to have that grenade hit right, you know, to grab a grenade that somebody threw at you, you know, and throw it back like right in front of them, like very satisfying.
I watched your review, Ben, after I beat it, and I have to agree with you about the pacing of the game. I never felt like in a moment where I was like, this is a drag or this is too much action. They never
get complacent with the ideas. They're always, whether it's the environment or an enemy type or both, or just like design of the environment itself, like it is like perfect throughout. Like the pacing is like immaculate. Yeah,
and there's a nice little bookend at the end of every section. Like when you get, it was the same with Half-Life 2 and all the Half-Lives, where you'd get to a doorway and then it would go to a loading screen and you just kind of like, okay, I made it. You know, like I'm out of the sewers. I'm out of that complex. I'm away from those head crabs. Like I go, okay, you know, like what's this next thing going to be? And so just each one of those little chunks is so tasty.
Brandon, you were mentioning like the head crabs getting stuck in the I can't remember their names, but the giant tongue guys.
Right.
And there are so many moments like that, and I think they go a long way in making the game feel dynamic. And so like whenever you're getting into a firefight or just like going through the world, you'll probably have something unexpected happen. But what I really like about Alyx is I don't ever feel like it relies on that stuff. Like there's never any moment where you're like, how do I get through this? And you kind of have to put things together that you don't expect. Like everything that you're doing like has a logical solution, but it doesn't begin and end at the logical solution. Like you can get very, very, very creative and you are rewarded for that without it like necessitating it to the point that you get frustrated and you're like, I don't know what you want me to do. Like what mechanic?
And that's the thing when, you know, not only with VR, but with shooters, that's so satisfying. Yeah. There was like one room, I had an extra grenade. I had that grenade in my hand and I like opened up a door and there was a head crab in and I was like, nope. And I closed the door and it's like at the door, like, like clawing at me. And I just like, boop, open up the door, drop the grenade, close the door. And I'm just like, suck on that. And like there's something so different about actually, it's not just the situational emotions that you get being in the environment, but physically holding my hand out, letting go of the trigger to drop the grenade, and then pulling my hand in to close the door. Yeah. Like is such a, like, when you think of like combat in games, like it's just a completely different level. Like it's so much different than just like our trigger and then, like I saw my hand throw it. Because it's always satisfying to blow something up in a shooter, but it's just like when you sink that 3-pointer and you just get a grenade right where it needs to be, very satisfying.
I mean, I feel like still so much of like single player shooter design, like from the big boys anyway, is like, you know, stay on this very strict path. If you go away from it, we're going to put up a timer that ticks down that you need to return to the battlefield and just stuff like that. And I feel like there is so much designed playfulness in Alyx that it's just a blast. Yeah. Like my absolute favorite chapter was the zoo, and just
oh my god,
how different that feels from every other part in the game. And of course, obviously Jeff is great. But the zoo, just like, I was legitimately terrified, dude, going through that
moment. And Jeff, there's like this part, I don't really want to spoil what Jeff is, but there's this part where you're under heavy distress and something is around you, and I had to do like this laser puzzle, like scanning the walls and flipping things, and I did it. Then I realized, oh man, I gotta go back this way where this entity is. Brilliant. I'm like, oh man, now I gotta try to distract this thing and try to solve this puzzle at the same time.
Humor through puzzle solving. Brilliant. You know, like, and there were so many moments where I could tell they were trolling me, like in gameplay in real time. You know, like an object was moving or something, you know, like a head crab was like, oh, I'm just going to wander over here. And you're like, no, you're going to touch the shit. You know, it's like, or like you were saying, Ben, it was like, oh, there's a thing or some weapon I want to grab. And then it's like, wait, you know, there was one time, you know, they have the sensors, like trip mines. Yeah. And I just like, when I was like, oh, the trip mine on the other side of that door. Well, let me open the door for it. Set it off. I'm like, obviously, duh, you know, like I need to disarm that thing. Or what I eventually did is I like went back into the hallway and shot the door, and it just and then set off the trip mine. And it's like just those little moments of like, it worked. You know, like it wasn't me being like, what is this game trying to tell me to do? You know, like there are puzzles and some of them were confusing, but I never looked up anything, or, you know, I still have one chapter to go, but like, I thought that was really cool that I never like went to the internet to be like, what the hell? Like, we just talked about Valhalla. I did that like 8 times. Yeah. And this game, it was always like, oh, I figured that out. And not because I was like, oh, thanks, dumb adventure game. That's the thing I was supposed to plug into. Great. It was like, oh, okay. I see what you're, you know, it's almost like you could feel the developers behind you being like, he'll get it. And I'm like, there it is. Okay. Yeah. I got to put the ring around the thing and then, okay.
The only problem, or I had another problem with the game besides just like the puzzle thing every now and then. I did have a technical problem that I ran into that I don't think, I saw some people ran into it online, but none of you guys did, is like, in a chapter, I got to a point where I was just constantly falling through the floor and dying.
Oh wow, yeah, no,
and I had to
definitely didn't have
reload
that.
it a couple times. I reloaded it, nothing, a bunch of times, and I recalibrated the headset, nothing. I reset the whole chapter. It didn't work. And I was like, shit, man, I don't know what to do. Then I reset it again. Then it worked. And I was like, okay, thank God, at least it worked. But it was just like some weird thing where I just got caught for like 2 hours. I couldn't figure out what to do.
That sucks. Yeah.
But I was happy I was able to get through it. But I was sad at the time because I was like, I just want to keep playing the game. But I can't.
Yeah. I've been playing on Quest 2 with the link cable, and it was a little spotty. I had to like do a lot of troubleshooting with my PC to have my PC like stop doing everything and just do this.
Right.
Because it's like a game not made for Oculus on a system that it thinks is the Rift. So it's like this weird kind of daisy chain idea of like
playing on the Rift, but you played it on the Index band.
I did, yeah.
The intended format.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it was wonderful.
It was wonderful.
But the detail still held up. I was still reading newspapers and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of really, really great detail in the world.
Yeah, I just and I say this as much in the review, but like going through and being amazed at how much detail is, like picking up a little teacup and there's stains inside, or just like there's just so much texture to the world. Like there's so much incredible visual storytelling that regardless of where you're going, you get like a sense of history and what's going on and how this like invasion is affecting people. And I felt that way when I first played through Half-Life 2. And obviously, you know, Half-Life 2 is a very, very, very old game, but at the time, like the level of detail that it had was just like amazing.
Yeah.
And Half-Life Alyx completely recreated those feelings for me. And for a long time, like when I played it and I submitted that review, I was just like, oh, I want you guys to experience it so bad. Like I felt kind of like on my own island with it. And so the fact that you have gone through it and you're having very similar feelings warms my heart for sure.
Yeah. This game, like, no disrespect to Dota or anything like that, but this game felt like very much a return to Valve.
Yeah, the Valve that you fell in love with.
That we all grew up loving and stuff like that. So it's kind of a shame that a lot of people aren't going to be able to get to play this game.
Yeah.
Because not everyone can do VR and it is kind of expensive. Well, it's cheaper now than a lot of times, but
cheaper than the PS5.
There's still a barrier to entry and not a lot of people have it, but I think it's a wonderful VR. It's probably the best VR game I've ever played when I think about it.
The best VR shooter, certainly, by miles that I've ever played. You can tell the people that played this or that made this really, really care about the franchise, really, really care about the characters and the story.
Yep.
I was nervous because I'm like, well, it's a prequel, so I'm not gonna really nervous about Alyx, and I was still like, I am so engaged in this world and story. And worth noting that like funny.
Yes,
funny game.
Very funny.
Actually,
a lot of great environmental humor, but like not an overboard of characters. Like it is a lonely game. Like you are by yourself, but like just really, really funny short quips. You know, like really jokes that just kind of just pop in and that's it. That I would just kind of chuckle to myself, be like, that's funny. And even just moments like that's not necessarily good writing, but like there's one puzzle where you have to like shut the power off to something. And so I shut the power off, but it knocked all the lights out. And when all the lights went out, Alyx just went, ugh. And it was like, yep, I'm going to have to go through that whole
how we're feeling.
Damn thing I just did in the dark. Like, damn it, you know?
Yeah.
But, and I remember, Ben, when I, read the review, you were saying like, there's some really creepy parts. And I was like, God, I bet they just go overboard with the head crabs in this. And I was like, kind of not looking forward to it. I was like, I don't want head crabs in VR. It's so worth it. Like it's so satisfying to viscerally like, and it's interesting by the time Ben, I got to that zoo level, just the one solitary head crab was like pop, whatever.
Right.
You know, it was like, but at the beginning of the game, you're like, and so it's neat to like, the first time an antlion came up to me, it was like, oh my God. And then like a couple levels later, it's like, no, I can handle 5 of these at once. It's fine. You know, like, so it's neat that you get better and more comfortable and ready for new challenges as you go throughout. It's very well paced.
I have to talk about the Monster Hunter Rise demo.
Please do.
Yeah, baby.
Of course.
I've played it.
Yeah, and actually
I played 3 different classes, one of them unintentionally.
Look at you.
Right, you did great sword unintentionally, and then bow and heavy bow gun, which was your favorite, which was cool.
Oh yeah.
But Brendan, I think I'm pretty sure amongst the 3 of us that you have the least experience with Monster Hunter, and so I just wanted to kind of get your opinion on Rise. Just like how overwhelming it was, or not overwhelming, or what really stood out to you that was cool.
I think the only thing that's overwhelming, an example of like the level that it would take, where, because it was interesting is I couldn't see your perspective, but you were streaming. And so it was interesting playing a level with you and then having you switch to the other team on our group stream and then watching you play. And I was like, oh, and seeing how fast you're going through the options. And you were like, be sure to set up your dial. And I'm like, that's fine. Like I'm not, because I'm ranged. Like I'm not gonna get poisoned. I'm not gonna, like I didn't have to deal with a lot of like status elements and stuff, or like, and one thing was like traps. Like you would sit down shock traps a lot, and I'm just like, I'm okay. I'm not, and I'm also doing zero prep. So like, while there was one thing we fought that I think was like water themed, and so like and that was when I had the bubble guy, and so that's when I had my when I was doing the big gun. And I had all these different ammo types, and one of them was shock. And so I was like, oh, let's do it. And so like I noticed like the damage, go up considerably. And it's like, well, if we were going to maybe do the hard mode of that, or if that was a new monster, I would probably work to craft as much of that as I possibly could before we did this. Whereas it's a demo and I'm just kind of jumping into this, and they're like, here's 50 rounds, go for it. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So that's why I kind of like ranged, because I don't have to stress out too much about placement. And so where it is something I really enjoy, it's not something that I would it's kind of like being a tank in an MMO. It's like I don't want that much pressure to be like right in the thick of things, to be kind of like the beating heart of the group. It's like I kind of like, just if I can, just standing back and pelting this thing. I think I might have been doing bow wrong, because I just wasn't getting the numbers I was getting on the big gun.
I definitely feel like Monster Hunter is one of those games where like you think you understand a weapon, and then you see somebody else do something, and you're like, oh, okay, that's actually how it's supposed to be done.
Watch a video of some guy do, so then you're like, oh shit.
Yeah. But Brandon, you just reminded me, because I've been playing a lot of games with my wife, and there are just certain things where like I'll try to tell her how important it is, and she's just like, yeah, no. Like anytime I mention like drifting, like in Mario Kart, she just refuses to drift. She's just like, I just don't care. I just don't need to drift. Just tell me what the go button is in the steer. And buffs, she's just not interested in buffs. The concept of buffs, like it's just no.
Oh yeah, Monster Hunter, wrong game.
Yeah. We actually did play some Monster Hunter Rise together. And it was very fun. Yeah,
Ben, I know. Sorry, this is off topic, but you will appreciate it because it concerns cooking.
Oh yeah.
So I feel I have that too, because she'll be playing something and I'm like, she's like, what? And I'm like, just 2 seconds. If you do this, if you practice, and so she's playing Immortals right now and she's loving it, but like she's really bad at dodging. Like she'll get in and she'll be like, I'm gonna attack you 6 times, and I'm like, you're gonna get 3 hits in, and then you gotta get the hell out of there because it's gonna hit you. And if you run at something, it's gonna hit you. Like it's gonna see you. So you want to run at something, piss it off, have it go to swing, dodge, and then you get in there and you do damage. And she's like, okay, all right, fine, okay. And then we got sponsored by HelloFresh, and so I've been making meals, and I'm in the kitchen, and she's like, and I was like, oh, that's what it's like.
Yes.
I was like, I get it now. And she's like, if you're gonna do the shallots, I would just cut it like this, and then okay, all right, now you just do whatever you want to do. And I was like, okay, cool. It's nice to see the other side of that coin.
Yes, definitely. But Brad, I felt bad because during the stream you were dealing with some hardcore lag.
It's a demo, dude.
Right.
It's like, it is what it is. It's not the full game.
But as somebody who played a lot of Longsword in Iceborne, how do you feel about it in Rise?
It seems super familiar. I actually watched like a guy breaking down everything, because I was, like you said, you think you know a weapon until you like really dig in.
Right.
And I found there's like a few different things. What's the grapple bug or
the wire
whatever?
Bug? Yeah, the wire
bug. Yep. Yeah, it kind of ties in. There's like a move you can only do with the wire bug that you have to incorporate with the wire bug to do now. I think it's really good still. I love the longsword because it's such a reactionary weapon, I would say a lot. Like a lot of it is reacting to what the monster is doing at the time, like countering something like that or setting up a certain attack. I mean, I guess a lot of Monster Hunter is that, but I just really like the way it plays. I love the Palamutes.
Yeah.
Like, these have to be staples in everything, or every Monster Hunter from now on. I won't lie, the downgrade in graphical and frame rate has been like very noticeable to me.
Yeah.
Especially because I played some Iceborne on a PS5 and it was super nice.
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, I'm playing on Switch now, like 1080p, 30 frames. Like, don't get me wrong, the art style is still good, and
Right.
it's still good. When I was playing it, I was having a really good time, but I definitely noticed, and it was very jarring at first. But
I think, Ben, visually, the main thing that kind of makes me sad about seeing Monster Hunter in that state, especially after World, because I'm not, not somebody who follows Monster Hunter, but when I saw the first trailer for World, I was like, whoa, this franchise has never looked like this before, has it? This is insane.
Yeah.
And it's funny to get into these like little forest hallways and like, you're like, oh, I'm going to gather some resources. And it's like grass texture, plant. You're like, oh, I wonder if that's something I can collect. Like they kind of stick out a little bit. They try to blend them in a little bit to the environment, but yeah, super nitpicky.
But yeah, I played some by myself too later on, and I was like, oh, this is really fun. I'm having a great time. This is Monster. This is just what I wanted to be. So yeah,
I think it's my big takeaway from it is I'm glad it's not just Monster Hunter World on Switch.
Right.
That it really, really has its own identity, and the Palamute, like you mentioned, is a big part of that. But I also just think in terms of world design, and then the wire bug, like the wire bug is one of those things that feels like it fits into Monster Hunter so well, because it's something that like you can immediately understand. Like you get the idea of like, okay, yeah, I can zip up there, or I can use it to escape or whatever, but it's something where the more that you practice it and the more you understand, because like Monster Hunter combat like is all about rhythm, and it's all about like being like, okay, when are my openings? When am I going to attack? And the wire bug like just makes that rhythm, I think, even more intricate. It's like, when do I do my special moves? Like when should I, go in for an aerial attack? All of that stuff. And yeah, go ahead.
I was say, I think it's cool that there's some abilities tied to it specifically. Like you can only do it with it. I do like that, some abilities may take 2 charges or 1 charge. So you got to be very deliberate about like, it seems like the Clutch Claw was like the base of the idea, I would say, from Iceborne. But this, they're just kind of like giving it a little more even depth. Right. Like the fact that you can get on a monster and have it do some moves, like attack, punch, then you can ram into the wall. It's just like, oh, that's just like I haven't played a lot of Monster Hunter games, so I don't know if you can do that in other ones. But like the idea of getting on another Monster Hunter's back and having him fight another monster,
that is brand new, baby.
Super cool to me.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
I actually want to circle back around to Wyvern Riding, because I'm talking more about the wire bug. You mentioned the Clutch Claw, and a problem that I have with the Clutch Claw is like Clutch Claw was really fun at first, but after a while, it's like, oh, like you kind of just need to do the same thing to every monster. Like, you kind of just need to tenderize its parts and like bounce it into a wall. And it just kind of felt samey between the monsters. And I think one of the joys of Monster Hunter is having different monsters feel different. And what's neat about the wire bug is kind of what you were talking about, that resource management, because outside of the special moves that you have for your weapons, your Silkbind attacks, like, there are just basic options that are really useful. Like I believe it's called the wirefall, where you get knocked down and like you can escape. That is so useful. But if you just used, an attack that took 2 charges, like it's not like the cooldowns are quick enough that I feel like it's not like a huge pain in the ass, but it pushes you enough that you do have to think about it a little bit. And it does encourage you to get those extra wire bugs that are out in the world. And anything that encourages you to get out there and explore, even just a little bit, I really value quite a bit. The other thing that I really like about the Silkbind attacks is how well they complement the weaknesses of an individual weapon a lot of the times. Like a good example is the gun lance, where you just burn through weapon sharpness with gun lance attacks, but one of your Silkbinds is a counter, and if you manage to do it successfully, you get some weapon sharpness back. And so it's just like seeing you, like playing Gunlance and burning through your sharpness, it really encourages you to try to go for those counters, which then again encourages you to like learn the monster's movesets and really pay attention to when you can set up a counter successfully. And so that sort of mentality just feels like it fits in so well with what Monster Hunter does great. But the Wyvern riding, Brad, it's such a hype thing, and I think monsters having their own individual attacks that you can do is really, really cool. and the finishers are just super, super hype.
Yeah.
I worry it's kind of giving me like a Clutch Claw vibe where I was really excited about it at first, but after doing it a bunch, I was like,
it's too much. Yeah.
I just felt like I was kind of going on autopilot, and I don't like going on autopilot in these games. And so I wonder if that's like specifically a demo problem. And once we get access to more monsters and things get even more difficult, if it won't be so simple, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll have to see.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hopefully, it just gets even better and better as it goes on.
It's fun to see someone else do. You know, I grabbed one accidentally because I'm just spamming buttons, you know, just trying out different things. And there was like one point where you're like, hey, somebody can ride it. Oh, there goes Jones. And I was like, oh, sorry. And I like ran it.
No, totally
right
cool.
away. Like, all right. But it's a good feeling as a team to be like, oh, especially if you have two, you know, or you're fighting one monster and then just like, oh crap, like another monster just wanders in and joins the fight. And you're just like, somebody, you know, get a hold of that dude. And then it becomes a weapon. Like it's a fun power struggle that I imagine like could really like, you know, change the power dynamics of a fight very quickly.
What's interesting about it too, and I feel like I've seen people hint at this, though I haven't actually watched the videos myself, but the fact that you can move the monster, like how that's going to play into like speed runs and just like broken strats, like, okay, I'm gonna ride him and then I'm gonna go to this specific area because it's more advantageous here, or I'm gonna like run to this other monster. So that'll be potentially very, very interesting. The other thing that I like about it is when you are controlling these monsters, when you're wyvern riding, the attacks that you have for the monsters are, in a lot of instances, pretty slow, and you definitely can get hit out of them. And so it's not something where you're just like mashing. Like you do have to think about it a little bit. But it's pretty easy to get down. And I also like the movement where I feel like you want to be running, and then when you're running, like the turning is like a little bit hard to control, but it's not so unwieldy that like you feel like you're fighting it the entire time. Right. The monster, which is really neat.
Yeah.
The more that I play the demo, the more that I really like the map, where I feel like there is a lot to find, and like just climbing stuff is super fun, but it doesn't have the ancient forest problem where I'm like, wait, how do I get through this? Like what? Like I've been through ancient forest so much, and I still run into problems where I'm like, this is a pain in the ass. Like I feel like things are pretty clear. Like getting from point A to point B is like pretty obvious, and I haven't had those frustrating moments, which is nice. Smaller map than what I feel like you see in World, but not like too small.
No, or I wasn't like, oh, this sucks, I'm just in an arena or something like that.
My biggest worry going into this demo was performance, and I really haven't had notable issues. Like it's 30 frames, but it's been solid, which has been nice.
Yeah, I do worry because, you know, it's Nintendo's online, and
when
he told me, like, you can only have, like, 4 people kind of in a thing.
4-person
I guess
models.
it's, like, not a big problem for a lot of people, but for us, I was kind of like, I wish you could have more people in an area again. Yeah,
the lag that you guys were experiencing was an issue, but I've done a number of online matches, and I haven't had like any connection issues, which has been nice.
That's good.
I haven't had any noticeable lag, and so yes, worrying about Nintendo Online is absolutely valid. Yeah. But I hope my experiences in the demo, which were positive, carries over into the main game.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, hey, look at this. I got the adapter
now. Nice.
Yeah.
Not messing around.
Yep. It's the right call. Brandon.
Yo.
Normally at this part of the show, you know, we do like the one sentence thing, or we do the best take. What I want to do is I want to take this moment for you to shout out a non-video game related thing and why you're shouting it out. And just kind of because we spent a lot of time on Frame Trap talking about games, which is obviously always going to be our focus, but I think it's fun to talk about some non-game stuff here and there when we can.
Here's a random one just off the top of my head. Just got a text from my mom, and she said apparently there's a rumor floating around that grocery store workers are going to strike. Because life probably sucks for them right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so Obviously, shout out to everybody that in the medical industry. Shout out to people that are working incredibly long hours. But during this pandemic, it's something where you go from going out to restaurants and you take that off the list to just going out to grocery stores and having that being difficult, and then taking that off the list, and then maybe doing like a pickup kind of situation, and then like maybe that's not necessarily so comfortable anymore, so just handling deliveries. And people who are growing food, people who are preparing food, and people who are delivering food, thank you very much. Thank you for all of your assistance during this. And not only obviously is it a survival situation, because as dopey mammals, it's something that we got to keep eating and drinking, but it's some of the rare comforts that we can still maintain, the ability to make a meal or enjoy a meal with a family, or to have something delivered because you don't have to prepare it, or having some kind of comfort food, or something sweet and savory delivered when you just need it the most. So it's something where, like, my mom sent me the message and she's like, boy, that's just what we need right now, this strike. And I was like, I don't know, whatever they need. Like I imagine not only is this potentially a good time to show the world how much they're needed, but I imagine things are very, very difficult for people in that position.
Absolutely.
Because from what you've potentially seen online, some people are very not happy about having to follow rules and guidelines and stuff like that going out into public spaces. So shout out to people having to put up with all of that stuff.
It makes me so mad.
So don't want to get in a soapbox. I just want to do the other side of it, which is thank you for people that have been doing that work.
Brad, I'm actually going to let you do a non-video game shout out as well. Like, why not get both panelists in here?
Oh, shoot.
I know I'm putting you on the spot. So you don't have anything. That's fine.
Shout out to the Lord of the Rings universe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shout out to that universe.
Nice.
I spent a lot of time,
Middle Earth,
I'm
baby.
really into the lore of that universe, and I dive into a lot of that kind of stuff, and it's become a fun hobby for me over the years.
Are you pretty stoked for the new Amazon show? Whenever that shows up?
Super excited.
Yeah, cool.
Obviously, a little nervous, but super excited to see what they do.
If you ever get the chance, Brad, in New Zealand, to go to the Shire, you would love
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be the first thing I would do, is go to the Shire.
Yeah, it's
watch
amazing.
the old animated movies if you haven't, Brad. They're
I've
fun.
seen them, yeah.
They're great.
Yeah.
Look how happy the Gollum Pez is. Look at him. Look how happy he
looks
is.
very, very sinister still.
And I love that the hobbits are small.
Schmeagol.
I love that, like here's Gandalf, and they're like,
that's
a
actually
good
pretty
touch.
cool. Yeah, it's a nice little touch.
God, I hope we get another Shadow of whatever game. We gotta finish that, man.
yeah, wrap it up.
Wrap it up, dude.
What it was like, Shadow of Mordor and then Shadow of War.
Yeah.
What are they going to call the third
Shadow
one?
of whatever? That would be
Yeah, Shadow
Shadow
of
of whatever.
Shadow of 3.
Yeah.
These panelist shout-outs are brought to you by some wonderful shout-out tier patrons. And I'm going to read through these, and then I thought at the end. So I just streamed Resident Evil 4 and was having...
I watched some of it, yeah.
I was having a hell of a time. That game is a 10 out of 10. And I thought, in honor of Resident Evil 4, I would have us do our shout-out in the style of the RE4 Merchant.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. See if you can conjure that up. So we'll do that once I get through these names. So first shout out goes to Elthanas, Greg, TheDarkKnight Kettering, Caleb, Togi Crawford, Nick, and Stephen Thomason.
Shout
out, stranger. Yeah.
Thank you to our shout-out tier patrons. If you want to be shouted out on our podcast, if you like these shows, go to patreon.com/easyallies, where you can check out more about the tier.
How happy are you every time you see that guy? It's like, oh, you're my best friend.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Selling, like,
What a strange little
giant
buddy.
fish to him.
Yeah, I'm so glad they just kept him a mystery and never really did
Yeah.
talked about him at all.
Why?
He was elaborated on enough, you know?
Yeah.
Brandon, I'm not sure if you finished it or not. Maybe you're playing through or have finished Ghost of Tsushima.
About halfway through.
Okay.
If the map is any judge, I am about You go south to north, but I'm like there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
In Act 2 currently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, similar to Huber talking to me about Valhalla and being like, you're gonna enjoy this. But like, Brad, when you first started, you were like, Jones,
We've got
this
Jones.
is your game.
Yeah.
This is my game for so many stupid reasons. It doesn't stop. Like, I love this era. I love open world games. Love riding around on a horse. Love meditation. Love just like honor and all, you know, and it's there's just so many things. I love, you know, following the cues of nature. So it's just so much fun, like following these little birdies, you know, to these interesting spots, and love the ocean, and you're just surrounded by it, you know, even though they got these big oppressive Mongol ships that are just always there on the horizon. Like there's just this, like, there's so many moments you just come through a clearing or go over a hill and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Beautiful.
It's like just red flowers everywhere. It's just bonkers. And it's something where it's like, man, I don't even know if Tsushima actually looked like this. I don't care. You know, like they clearly were, you know, I imagine like coming into work one day and somebody sucker punched the creative director's like, I saw your environment, Bill, and it's not beautiful enough. You got to crank that up. It's just, you're like, every zone has got to be absolutely taken to 11.
It's one of those games that it's hard to believe it's a PS4 game with how good it looks.
And I'm playing on PS5. I you know, I definitely put it off because it's something that I'm like, it's gonna be hard to focus on other things once I finally get into it. But I'm kind of glad that those load times are barely there, and it's just absolutely running beautifully. And it's funny, like, even though all the characters are very stoic and there's a lot of NPCs who are just like, thank you for rescuing me, like, really, really into the story and really into the relationships and each specific character arc. They're lasting a lot longer than I thought I would. You know, like you start out and the guy who teaches you the bow is like, hey, I got this student that's gone rogue. And you're like, all right, let's go. I'll go take him out and then you'll come with me. And it's like, still doing it, still hunting that person and still, you know, like really digging into this guy and his history with her and how tough it is as the relationship between master and student, and passing on the things, you know, and the trust involved in that. And, you know, especially when if it's a combat skill, the whole relationship of people on the island dealing with the Mongols, whether they're going to try to escape or, you know, conform or fight back or hide or, you know, and interesting going directly from Valhalla to this, because in Valhalla, I am the Mongols, you know,
right?
Like I'm the invader, you know, you're just like, haha, stupid Christians. And it's like, wait a minute. Like, and in this, it's much more, it's much easier to get onto Jin's train in terms of like fighting back and taking back that island, and, you know, him being, you know, this struggle that he feels with, you know, trying to, you know, putting down some of his samurai beliefs and taking up the stealth aspect, and just so satisfying to just like, and it does get repetitive. Like I can't, you know, at this point I must have killed like 300 different gangs wandering the roads, but just like at the same time walking up and just like, send your strongest warrior.
Yeah.
Like, they come out just like, you know, but it is, it runs in the same issues as Valhalla, where it's not a horribly difficult game. Like you can get kind of backed into a corner. Like there are times where I haven't played in a couple days and I'll like boot it back up and be like, okay, whoa, I need to reacquaint myself with the L1 block button, and then like, okay, now I'm in the groove. But I'm like, Brad, I'm challenging myself because I only wear the traveler's outfit because it pings like items nearby. It'll like rumble if there's stuff nearby that you can collect, but it's like the lowest armor rating of anything. Like it's kind of playing on like hard mode a little bit.
They did add lethal mode post, which I'm super happy they did.
And I have played Legends, which I have not gotten back into since I've been
Legends
really
is
burying myself.
Fun.
Legends is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just such a, I think Valhalla is really fun. I think there's a lot more systems in Valhalla. There's a lot more characters. It's just a denser, bigger, more epic game. Yeah. But as far as just like artistry, as far as just like chef's kiss, you know, like you start a quest and it goes like a widescreen shot and just like the title shows, and it's so much of a classier game than Valhalla is. Took a little while to get used to like having a jump button and having the horse be a little wobblier and you know, having some, you know, just the general combat feel of it. But love being an underdog, and especially in an open world game. Love you know, accruing assets and friends and fighting back, and see you take out a fort and then you get back to the menu and the fort like rumbles and like you did
Yeah.
it. You're like, yeah, like it's gone from red to white and I can fast travel there now. Yeah, fun to fight back. It's kind of like Braveheart though, because I think didn't they ultimately lose? Like, didn't they?
Yeah, I believe
did
so.
Like I think historically, like
William Wallace, yeah,
didn't work out so well. Just at the end of Braveheart, when he's like, and they won their freedom. He's like, and then lost it again, but whatever. Like,
yeah.
It's I'm extremely into it. I mean, it's just it's a very fun game to play.
Brandon,
fun world to explore.
I have to imagine you're like going all in on the bow. With
not as much as you'd think. I got a outfit that improves my like bowness, and I'm like, I still kind of like the traveler's thing because I don't want to miss items. And I got the long bow, which is like 6 feet tall. I mean, it's a humongous thing. And I'm not, maybe it's just kind of the speed where I'm just like, I don't need it. Like, I don't really, like, if I headshot a guy, he's out. I don't know what I need super strong like bows for.
Yeah.
In fact, there was one time I forgot I had it equipped, and this guy was like, oh no, here comes Mongols on the road. And these like 8 dudes on horses came running down the road, and I just like explosive arrowed them, like, oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, horses.
Yeah.
But stabbing guys in the neck is super fun. It was interesting in Valhalla too, because there were 3 different types of bows, and I really just kind of stuck to one. I was like, I don't know. There's like a quick fire. I'm like, I'm kind of cozy with it. But I'll tell you what I am into, Ben, is just the way they talk about bows. Just this whole, just kind of like the meeting archers that are really, really good, and just like how you focus with that, and like bow has, mastery of the bow has nothing to do with your eyesight,
right?
It has to do with your spirit.
Yeah, that bow sensei, Preach. How judgmental he is. Yeah, it's pretty great. Are there, because you have quite a few options in Tsushima, is there like any particular tool that you enjoy using or lean on quite a bit? Like,
the smoke bomb is so OP, it's ridiculous.
Just popping those and then getting the insta kills. Yeah, it's great.
Oh yeah, because you get that triangle triple kill, and it's like the fact that when I saw that you could do that from a smoke bomb, it's like, oh come on, they know I'm there. Why would I surprise a guy that I just saw?
Yeah,
just because I like dropped some smoke in front of him. Like I don't know. There was one, it was said with Valhalla, where like, you don't really need to do stealth. You can just kind of run in. There was one like fort that I just took. It was really fortified. I mean, big, heavy wooden walls, horses everywhere running around, archers and everything. And it's like, cue the Benny Hill music, man. Like I just kept running in circles and just like, and then I would like kill a guy, loot him. Oh, another smoke bomb. Take 3 guys out.
Are you pretty
dodge.
successful at the standoffs?
Yeah, again, it's usually like the first one I do when I like sit down to play for 2 or 3 hours. It's like that first one's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it's kind of satisfying because I've like 8 circles now, and so it's like, it's not that bad if I lose a little bit of health, but it is fun. I love the leap, the critical strike off the horse. That is fantastic. But I like the move when they do, and they'll like put the sword away, and you like, this unblockable attack is coming that's tricky to dodge. I like the impact that because that's like one of the things about sort of keep going back to Valhalla. It was just fascinating playing these 2 open world games back to back. Like the impact of those strikes gets lost a little bit. You get a dodge in Valhalla that slows everything down, and when you like hit people while everything's slowed down, it's kind of like flump, flump, flump. It's just like, whoa, what happened? Like this should feel amazing if I'm like attacking them now, and like clanging swords with the guy and having him like get shocked like feels so good when that huge strike is coming after, or like when you get the moon stance and the guys with the big hammers, you can just kick them in the face and they get stunned and you just like charge up and attack, or like that like triangle charge where you can like hit a guy with the shield and then just whap 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 like right after it. Like really, really satisfying when you do the right move against the right guy with the right stance or the right item. But there's also kind of that Batman vibe, where just like, kunai. All right, I won.
Yeah, kunais are great. You definitely. I relied on kunais quite a bit, just how powerful they were.
It's easy but satisfying. It's a tough line to balance yourself on, especially for like an open world game where it's like I'm going through so many fights. I think overall gobbling up the world was more satisfying, and I was hungrier to do it in Valhalla, but there's like so much climbing and so much like weird control issues, and like I'm just burning through Tsushima. And it's just, we talked about how long Valhalla is. Like, from what I can tell, Tsushima is just like the perfect length. Like,
yeah, it's not too long.
Yeah.
Gobbling up this world, is there like certain optional content that you enjoyed the most, like whether it was is finding the shrines or just the side stories of the characters, or like is there anything where you saw it on the map and you were like, yes, I have to do that right away?
I think they do a good job with with humor. I think that like there are like the comedic characters. Like, it is a pretty dour world. Like, again, a lot of the people you're meeting are very serious soldiers. There's a lot of death. There's a lot of surprising amount of death. There's a lot of situations where it's like, let me go see if that guy's okay. Oh, he's dead. And I'm like, ooh, like I thought I was gonna rescue that dude, but woof, like it's a pretty bleak world. But at the same time, it's I like the option when you get like your little jacuzzi breaks. I get when you get to pick like, okay, do I want to reflect on something that's kind of lighthearted right now, or do I want to reflect on the Mongols, man? Like, and it's neat to kind of hear him to get in the mindset of his spiritualism and his set, where like you can see to when you have these moments of where you can tell he just wants to like, I rescued some guy who was like rich and he's like, this shouldn't have happened to me, and you just want to slap him and be like, dude, you are lucky to be alive. Do you know how many so many corpses I see just wandering on the road, and so it's I like those meditative moments, so because you can see, even though Jin is like hardly showing any expression, it's like he is working on that, like Spock, like that is hard for him to maintain. So I think that he's a great character. I think they did a really good job, considering how much talking like any one character has to do, and how like, they don't know what order I'm doing these things in. And so every conversation kind of has to work for all seasons. It's like, you might've just done something funny and then boom, you're going into this guy who just lost his wife and kid, or, this town that just got burnt down, or, this pile of corpses you just saw. So it's a tricky balance between beauty and horror that the game has, but it's funny when like there'll be a serious scene and there's just blood and there's like, so anyway, let's go into this game. And like, Jin, you got a little something on your face.
Brad, you've been playing one of my favorite stories of the year, and that is 13 Sentinels, which Brandon, you also expressed some interest in, so I'm curious to know what you think of Brad's thoughts here. But man, Brad, 13 Sentinels is one of those games that is hard to talk about, because to talk about the coolest stuff, it's just spoiler city. I feel like you have to dance around a lot. Yeah,
like the story is obviously, I think, the standout aspect of this game.
Yeah,
and I mean, obviously, it's a vanillaware game, so it looks incredible. Like, just
stunning,
beautiful the entire time. I usually don't really like, I realized over time, I usually don't really like visual novel-esque kind of games, I guess, where it's like a lot of the game is talking most of the time. And like, there is a lot of talking in this game, but man, it's just so enthralling. And I think there's enough like freedom of you getting to move around and kind of figuring out what to say when, that gives it enough for me to keep going and interested. Like, Joe, since you never played it, there's a lot of times you talk to characters and you get like you learn new things, like new thoughts. So then you could say this thought to this character to like progress a new path or something like that. And a lot of times you'll go back in time and replay a same section with different dialogue to get a different kind of route.
Cool.
And it's also a mech game.
Yes.
It's like a tactical mech game. Like, you're in mechs, but how it's laid out is you see kind of like the feel, almost like from a above point. You don't like see your mech like physically like walking around. You see like a little indicator of it on the map, and you're fighting through like kaiju, essentially giant aliens. Like, I don't know the whole story yet, so I'm still figuring it out. But like, giant monsters coming out of the ground and just like fucking up the world, and it's like time travel, all this crazy shit. I like the mech combat. I definitely enjoy the story aspect more of the game.
Yeah.
And like just exploring, but I think it's fine, competent.
It definitely comes into its own, the combat a little bit more towards the end, once it gets a little bit more demanding, but it was never like even close to the primary thing that I was enjoying. But yeah,
Right.
kind of emphasizing your point, Brad, I think it really does help break things up with that sort of adventure game aspect. And with each of the characters kind of having slightly different pacing to them, like someone like trying to investigate somebody or somebody chasing after somebody else, like I think there's enough differences in terms of vibe between the characters, and actually having 13 characters that you're constantly switching between really helps, because any one chapter for a character is actually pretty short. Like
yeah,
you go in, you get a little bit of this person's story, and then you get out and you do somebody else, and they feel like completely different. And I think that really not only helps the pacing, but the way that they structure it, they kind of make you just want to keep going and going and going and going. And like,
yeah,
you kind of worry that when you have all of these characters, you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to play this person, and then am I going to forget what's happening with them? But they do actually a really good job of each character expands on the central story in its own way. It's almost like you have like this crumpled paper, and as you do each individual character, you kind of unroll that paper like a little bit on different sides, which is really, really neat.
Yeah. And I think what really helps is that all the characters are interesting.
Oh, yeah.
And their stories are interesting enough. Like how you say, like, I took like a week off, and then I came back, and I had this character, and I'm like, oh, am I going to remember what was going on? And I hop in their thing. I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember exactly what was happening in this story.
Right.
And I think they all are interesting. So I don't feel like there's a character I'm like, man, I don't want to play this character's story.
Yeah. Brett, I completely agree. I genuinely don't think there's a single character I didn't like for one reason or another. Like they all really add something. And kind of to your point about like enjoying all of them, I think what helps is as you're going through one character's story, they might show you a different side of a character that you've already played as, and you're like, wait a minute, I wasn't expecting that. And so then it gets you like even more hyped to circle back around and continue their story to see like how all of that links up, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, I think it's a really great game. I don't think it's a game necessarily for everybody. Like I can't see, just everyone getting into this game, but I think at what the game is trying to accomplish, it does very well. And I'm invested in this story and just figuring out where things are going.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how it ends, man.
Yeah. And that's, Brad, that's what's so cool about it is, obviously in these kinds of games, you expect like major revelations and plot twists and all that stuff. And like, and you kind of expect that stuff like bombs to be dropping towards the end of the game. And that definitely happens. But 13 Sentinels is one of those games where it just sort of feels like it never stops dropping bombs.
Dude,
like every chapter you're like, oh, that's mind-blowing. Like, and it just never, ever lets up with kind of its insanity in a way that, again, I think as I was going through it, made me really hungry to continue.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing about the combat that is nice is, like, it's literally separated on the menu where you have, like, story and then, like, extra tidbits of lore and then combat. And so, like, you could just do a little bit of combat at a time if you want, or you can just like do it all at once. And I think
I do really like that.
Yeah, that's it. You being able to approach it your own way is really, really
like
nice.
Yeah, you get like blocked behind some walls where it's like you have to do this kind of thing. You have to do this mission to get this next part of the story, but it's never like too much. I feel like I can get a good amount of time in if I want to see story before I have to do combat.
Have there been any moments? Because I definitely had a couple of moments where I was like, okay, I'm just like not interacting with the right thing, and I'm not able to progress.
Where I was just like, what am I doing wrong, kind of thing like that. Yeah.
Okay. Has it happened enough that it's been like prohibitive for you?
No, like I've definitely sat there for like, I've tried things, for like 10, 15 minutes, but eventually like I will figure it out.
Sure. But
yeah, there's definitely, it hasn't been where I'm just like stuck. I don't know what to do. I'm frustrated. I'm mad. I don't want to play this game anymore, kind of thing.
Sure. Have there been any moments where like they've been getting into characters and like they'll have a revelation and you're like, I so don't understand what that means that like I can't even appreciate it? Or do you feel like you've been able to kind of
like they reveal stuff and you get some of it, but you don't get all of it yet.
Right.
And that's intentional.
Yes,
they
exactly.
give you enough to keep you going, to keep you interested, but they're not going to give away the whole story yet.
Yeah, I feel...
There's definitely been moments where I was like, oh shit, what? What's going on here? Kind of thing like that. I'm like, I gotta keep going to see what happens.
Brandon, not to put you on the spot, but like everybody's thinking about like game of the year, and we're all like, oh, okay, I want to check out more of this and stuff. And I've definitely brought up 13 Sentinels for like best narrative, and it's something that you said that you were interested in. Yeah. How do you kind of like order what you want to play? Is it more like, oh, I'm more into open world, so I just naturally gravitate towards that?
Sure. Yeah, Tsushima. Well, it's a lot of things, because like, it's not only my interest in Tsushima, and so that is something that I want to play, but I also feel that like, because I have a lot of experience with that, my opinion, I'll be able to articulate what I like about one thing over the other. I remember Ian was like, should I play Valhalla? And I'm like, no. Right. Like, oh, okay.
Right.
So I don't know if playing the amount of 13 Sentinels that I'll have the time to is going to teach me enough about 13 Sentinels.
That's a very fair point.
To bring something to the conversation that I couldn't get just from listening to the two of you talk.
Right.
And that's the thing, is like, that's like, half of Game of the Year is listening to someone else explain their experience. The difficulty of Ian trying to explain to me the ending of Outer Wilds after I just kind of got frustrated with that game, and I'm like, this restarting this thing over and over again is really kind of getting tiring, and I know it's satisfying, but I just would rather, so just kind of pull him aside, and I'm like, spoil it for me. And he told me like, oh, okay, cool, like, so you kind of have to take your experience and marry that with someone else's experience, and sometimes that means you haven't, in the case of last year when we talked about Judgment, for best character, and like you brought up two characters from Judgment, and you were like, here is my experience of those, and I've worked with you long enough that I know, like, okay, if Ben is saying that about these things, if Huber says something's 10 out of 10, it means one thing, but if you are really focused on something and enjoy it, like, you're able to articulate it in a way that it's never going to be as good as my own personal experience with it, but at least I can make my vote count, or know enough to know, like, I abstain because it's probably unfair for me to weigh in on that.
That makes a lot of sense. That was very well explained.
One example is Hades, which is way outside my comfort zone, but I knew enough about it to be like, I have to play this. I have to, because there's like, people talk about feel so much. That's like, I gotta feel this game. Like, I'm probably not gonna be able to finish it, but I gotta at least maybe try to get halfway through, or understand how progression works, or what I need to level up, or try different weapons and stuff. So,
I truly don't know, like, what's going to win our game of the year, or if Hades is going to win, or what Hades is going to win. But like, from the bottom of my heart, I want every human being to play Hades. Like, it's so good. It deserves every bit of accolade that has been thrown its way.
I think Hades, out of everything that I've played for consideration for Game of the Year, has the least amount of faults. That doesn't necessarily mean it is the most deserving of Game of the Year, but for what it does, it's practically perfect. Like, of what I've experienced so far, like, holy cow, that's just such a finely tuned video game. Everything, just visuals, gameplay, voiceover, story. Solid game.
The last game that we're going to talk about is one that I've been playing, and I think I'm getting close to the end. I'm kind of surprised at how long this game is, but I started it over completely, because I've talked about it in Frame Trap before, but I started over completely. I've been playing it with my wife, and I think I feel the same way about Days Gone that you guys kind of feel about Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where there are a lot of things that, like, I'm glad it's a game I'm not reviewing in a way, because like, I think if I had to review it, it's like, okay, I don't think this is very good, or this is a problem, or this is repetitive. Like, there's a lot of things that I can knock it for, but I'm having a great time. And I've actually gotten really invested in the story and the characters. And I think, for such an overpopulated genre, the kind of take that Days Gone has on zombies is really interesting, where like, people are just in this world, and you are not really immediately attached to any one sort of belief. Like, the Tucker camp is very different from the Copeland camp, which is very different from the Iron Mike camp, and they all sort of have like their philosophies of this world, and you kind of bounce between them and get to hear, how they're surviving. And I think that is really cool. And I also ended up liking Deacon a lot, where like he is like kind of a bitter asshole, but it doesn't feel like unjustified. Like the way that he thinks about things and processes things, it's based on experience. It's based on experience that you didn't get to see. And so when he makes comments about something, you kind of learn a little bit more about his history. And like the way that he talks to himself is really fascinating, like kind of comical in some senses, but like you really get the sense that like this is somebody who like has spent a lot of time alone and has like affected how they talk. And I think that's all very fascinating.
Yeah, man. Game's fun.
Yeah.
It's got problems, I agree, but I had a good time playing it. And you're playing on PS5 now, so
playing
it's
on PS5.
better.
Yeah. It's been
smooth.
tempting, man. People on Twitter like posting screenshots, and I'm like, I no, I should not go back. But I would. The moment Days Gone 2 gets announced, that immediately will skyrocket to the top of my anticipated list, because it's one of those games that you feel like the second outing is going to really nail it. Like they because it's, like you were saying, it's a little bit longer than you expected. And it's one thing, Valhalla does this a little bit, but it's one thing to be like, wow, what they showed me was longer than I thought. They kind of show you something, and then and then there's all this, and you're like, whoa, so there's this whole other act that you just don't see coming.
Right.
And so that was a little tiring, especially because I was reviewing it at the time. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Like when you tell your wife, like, I'm almost done. And then you're like, I'm sorry. I apologize. I thought I was, but there's like so much more to do. But then that story chapter was like my favorite story chapter of the whole game. And so it's like, it's tough to actually, it's funny to go back in time and see like me messaging Bloodworth. I'm like, I'm almost done. And then like 4 hours later, I was like, scratch that.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Brandon, that is so funny, because I went through that exact same feeling, like the exact same, where I was like, because I have a pretty good sense when games are about to end, because there's always these telltale signs, and I was like getting all these telltale signs. Like, this is, we're reaching the climax. Like, things are definitely hitting the fan in a way where like I don't know where they're gonna go from here. And then you're like, oh, there's a lot more. Like we're going into this whole other chapter, and I was kind of worried about that. But you're right. I think that has been some of the most interesting stuff story wise, for sure. And we'll see how it wraps up. But
it's interesting because there was one critique, and I probably could have worded this. It's one of my flaws, like as a reviewer, is I'll make a statement, but I don't necessarily like really back it up. It's tough to like not have reviews be too wordy. And I showed a shot in the review, and I said like they're doing stuff like this with fear of zombies that games haven't done before. And a lot of the comments in my review were like, okay, this guy hasn't played Left 4 Dead, and it's like it's a different thing. It's one thing if
it definitely
Left 4 Dead for me is more about speed, like than numbers, and like when you see an ocean of these things, when you see, even if you're clear, even if you're like, oh, I'm on my bike, I'm out of here. It's just like, just looking at it, it's like, man, like that is, holy cow, those things know where I am, and I would be super dead, if I stay here, but I'm not. I'm just going to keep on riding. Or just in the rare case where like you don't see it coming and you just turn the corner like, oh shit.
Yep.
Have to do a 180 so fast. It's like, oh man, I've played so many zombie games, and that was a new jolt that I just got there from this game. It's so satisfying when you just chuck a jug into them and
it's
napalm a bunch of guys.
It's really funny, and I think the juxtaposition is super, super cool, because you were talking about like Assassin's Creed Valhalla like being fairly easy, or like Ghost of Tsushima being relatively easy for you. And when you're dealing with like a small group of humans or individual zombies, like it's really not that big of a deal, especially the fact that one of the perks allows you to slow down time and like easily line up headshots. You're just amazing. You're a god, and you can like buff up melee damage and all this stuff. Like you become really, really powerful. But there are times where like, depending on the size of the horde, like if I alert too many of them, like I'm just dead. Like I might as well just reload. And I think despite feeling very, very, very powerful, I do like some of the moments that like sort of feel dynamic, that strip away that power. Like when you get caught off guard and like a freaker jumps on you and knocks you off your bike, and you're like, oh God, like you kind of get used to it the more that it happens. But I've definitely had moments where it's like, oh, that kind of surprised me. Or when you get trapped by like a group of marauders, and they like lock you up, and you have to get out, and you have to get all your gear and take them out. Like, it doesn't take very long, but there are moments like that do emphasize the danger of the world in a cool way. And like, I think the gas and like bite damage is this good line of like making you consider it and think about and sweat a little bit as you're going and doing stuff on the map. But it's not like a huge pain in the ass. Like, it's pretty easy to go get gas and find it. Like, all that stuff's already available. So
it's not like Sea of Thieves risk and reward where you're like, should we go to one more island?
Right.
Let's go back. I'm done. You know, but you're like, that's where the line is where, it's not like a constant curse that you're just like burdened by, but you do have to think about it. Like, it is, you have to be aware of it. And I like that I don't think I've ever seen a open world game do this where like it accounts for fast travel.
Yes.
Like the only way I've seen a game do that is just time of day, where
right.
It's like, okay, well, I know if I go there, I think Witcher does that, where it tells you like what time it's going to be when you get there. And so like, well, it's going to be nighttime. And so if you want to go to that store, you got to go to bed or just wait when you get there or whatever. And I like that they're like, you don't have the gas to go there, and it's like, okay, and sometimes in open world games, it's like, well, it's just one more damn stop. Like, it's not going to, let me just go there. Let me just assume I went to the gas station because I'm going to be able to do that and survive, but just actually having to manage it and do it. Like, I love that stuff. In open world games, I love when they account for you being there and for the difficulty of Hubers once said something that I nailed it, where he was like, it makes you respect the open world. And I was like, that's a good point, Huber. It makes you, it immerses me more, that it's like, no, you got to account for that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I also feel like a lot of the hordes are dynamic, where like sometimes they're there and sometimes they're not, which is really cool. And again, talking about respecting the open world, like you have those moments where you're like, well, maybe I should just come back and they won't be there. And I love making decisions like that in games of
mega
just
hordes,
like having to think about travel rather than it just being like an automatic, like follow the marker kind of thing. So it's
going into caves.
Yeah.
I hear them. I know they're in there somewhere. Yeah. Creepy.
Not as creepy as this HOTTAKE! Because how could I resist? We have the Resident Evil showcase next week. I'm a huge Resident Evil fan. Brad's a huge Resident Evil fan. Brandon's a huge Resident Evil fan. It's a shame we don't have Huber on here, but this will be the last frame trap before the Resident Evil showcase. And I was like, let's have a fun one. Let's have a fun HOTTAKE, where we just sort of get into it, because they're not just going to talk about Resident Evil 8. They're going to show gameplay off for Resident Evil 8, but it's going to be more than that. And I kind of wanted to speculate what that could be, because it could be a lot of things. Like, there's this beta sign up for this multiplayer game that we don't know what form that will take. It'll be interesting to think about what that could be. Will we see like a Revelations 3? Will we see ports of old games? Will there be crossovers like Silent Hill was in Dead by Daylight? Will Resident Evil be in Dead by Daylight? There was a Reset Era thread that brought that up, and I was like, oh, that could definitely happen. They've got Netflix shows in the works, an animated one, which they've already shown a trailer for, and a live action one, which I don't believe we've seen. So much going on. Like, I guess, what do you think is likely, and what would you like to see personally?
The absolute hypest thing that they could do would be a Resident Evil 4 remake teaser. Even if it's like miles off, just letting us know, like, I mean, we're doing that. Like, I've seen like a Code Veronica remake, but it's just like the 3 remake happened so fast after 2.
It did.
That it's like, I'm surprised 3 did as well as it did and was as well received as it was, because 3 was kind of like it's a weird little cousin, to the other main series. It really feels like 1, 2, Code Veronica 4. Like 3 just doesn't seem as consequential or as monumental as like the other games. And so it's like, if they did 3, I don't know why the hell they wouldn't do 4 or Code Veronica, keep that train rolling.
With 4, do you think it's a concern at all? Because like 3 is also set in Raccoon City, and 4 is just a much longer game and a wildly different setting. Do you think that would, impact the speed of development?
I wouldn't be surprised if literally they gave one team 3 and started another team on 4 the same day.
Sure.
The 3 team was like, oh, cool, you already built half of this, nice. But the other team was like, okay, they just, could not happen at all. It could be just it's so much of its own beast that it's just hard to do, and clearly there was like a tonal shift. Like 4 is so much sillier than 1, 2, 3 and Code Veronica in a lot of ways. That it might be a hard thing to like rewrite. It's like, what do we make this serious now, or do we make it goofier, or what do we do? Or would it be as revolutionary? Like, there are ways to really shake up 1, 2, or 3, whereas 4 is still like the way we play shooters now.
Yeah.
That it's like, would a remake really? Would you just be like, yeah, this is 4, or would you be like, whoa, look what they did to 4? It could be a tough prospect. I don't know.
Like, I'm sure my love of the game is impacting my opinion. Like, I'm not playing Resident Evil 4 for the first time, right? But playing it today, it is incredible how much it holds up. Like, I think there are maybe some things you could argue, like the movement could maybe be like a little bit smoother, but it's still so playable. Really, and once you get into the rhythm, it's like
playable,
great, yeah.
Playable,
repeatable too. I mean, it's just like I'll play RE4 fine.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah,
RE4 on Switch. Well, I'm playing it again. Okay.
2 things I would love for them to do is, one, if they're gonna remake a game, I would love them to remake 0.
Yeah,
I think that game could definitely use a remake for some aspects.
I think 0 for sure. I also think Code Veronica could really benefit.
Yeah. I feel like Code Veronica will happen sometime.
I hope so.
They do 0 too. And I think this is not likely at all, but I would love if they just added more to Resident Evil 3 Remake. Because Resident Evil 3 Remake is a really short game.
Yeah, it is.
And it's definitely missing some things from the original.
For sure.
That I wish were in the game.
Yeah.
Like, I still had fun going through the game and everything, but I couldn't help but feeling like a little disappointed in some aspects. Especially like the choice thing. There's like none of that. Some of the areas are just gone. There's no mercenaries or anything like that.
Somebody in my chat really summed it up very, very well. They were talking about Resident Evil 3 Remake, and they were like, I enjoyed it, but there was something missing. And I felt the same way. Like, I really had a great time playing Resident Evil 3 Remake, but it wasn't like Resident Evil 2 Remake where I felt like full. It was like a snack in a weird way.
Yeah.
Well, I think it helps just having the 2 campaigns. And I think they were hoping, Resistance would help fill that gap or void. Right. But it's like, that was like not very good. So it felt like people were like, oh, $60 for a 6-hour game or whatever. It's like, I could see that.
Yeah. Would you want, could Outbreak return, like that style of game?
Yeah, I think this is like the best time for it to return, probably.
Hell yeah.
Like, online gaming is just better. Like, Outbreak on PS2 online, is like so primitive compared to we are now.
I just think that would be so much more appealing to me than like this competitive stuff that they keep trying.
Me too.
Right.
I think co-op is a much better idea than versus.
Yeah. And what's so cool about Outbreak, and I guess you have this in Resistance as well, but like, I love the idea of different characters having like
different
skills.
Yeah.
And so it like thinking about like who's going to bring in what as we go through like, a traditional Resident Evil scenario. I think that's
I'd love it.
Such a neat idea. Yeah.
I also like the idea of closed chapters. So it's kind of like a Left 4 Dead vibe where, each thing you're going in, it's not like, okay, well, we got to have our friends come back for chapter 2 to continue our progress. It's like, you can if you want, but if you want to just have a new player and be like, no, we're on the last, mission, kind of like you guys with the, the Warhammer game.
Vermintide,
Vermintide, where it's like you can jump in later and do later content if you want, and we can just kind of carry you through it, depending on what difficulty we set it at. It would be neat if it followed that, setup.
Yeah, and speaking of Vermintide, like I think you could take the Outbreak concept, but something that Vermintide does really well is I love the progression in Vermintide for your characters and how you grow over time. So that could be really cool.
Yeah. I remember thinking when I was playing, which the game that I don't remember what it's called now, the asymmetrical, mastermind game that they just released.
Resistance.
Resistance, yeah. Where I remember like seeing the progression in that, and I was like, oh, this would interest me if I'm gonna play this. But I'm not. But it's like, oh, okay, I could see me getting kind of into unlocking things and stuff, and like that would be fun, like getting into a multiplayer Resident Evil for a couple months.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, and build something up and flexing my abilities, or bringing a new player in and then being like, you have a grenade launcher? It's like, yeah, it takes a while to unlock it, but it helps, you know.
Yeah, Resistance is weird because like I had a good time, and I'm sure it's probably better now. I don't know, but it was just like so janky, and it wasn't just like the technical aspects, but I think like I don't know. I like the sense in Resident Evil of like going against these kind of like larger than life threats, and when you're going against another player, it's like, yeah, I can tell this is another player. Like they're acting like somebody playing a video game with how they're placing these enemies. And I don't know, that's a little weird to me, I guess.
Took you out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
What the third part of that light gun series? What was that?
Umbrella Chronicles?
Yeah, Umbrella Chronicles 3.
Oh, you want a third part of that?
That'd be fun. I don't know.
Sure, yeah, why not?
In VR or something? Or I don't know. That'd be weird.
Oh, a VR one could be really cool. Yeah.
Those were a blast. Those were very cinematic. That really felt. That was like that was a fun like to beat in one night kind of a game. It was very like just Time Crisis, but with Resident Evil. It was fun.
It's neat. I think the second one is Darkside Chronicles, which I didn't play, but like Umbrella Chronicles, it's cool how you go through different Resident Evil games.
Yeah.
Which is neat.
Yeah. That was cool.
I don't know if you guys want this, but I really liked Revelations 2. I don't think it's like one of the best Resident Evil games or anything like that, but I would totally be up for kind of a more bite-sized sort of offshoot thing. I always, I don't know.
I feel like Outbreak could be a good bite-sized thing if they do it.
Yeah, definitely. Especially with what Jones was saying with like the individual
chapters.
Because that's the thing, Brad, about RE3, where people are like, "This is too short," and I was like, "It's perfect."
Yeah,
like I was kind of glad when I was like, "Oh, I can beat this in a night." Cool, or like maybe 2 days, and then I'm done. Like from a value proposition, like I get it. I can certainly respect criticisms of that, but just personally, from how much awesome RE stuff we're getting, I was like, I did not need that to be elaborate.
I think the thing that I really liked about RE2 Remake, something that really gave it legs for me, is that RE3 didn't really have, is the hunk scenario and then the DLC chapters where you play as different characters. And like
really didn't have like anything like that.
That stuff was so cool and so much fun.
Tofu
and
stuff.
Yes, like that stuff was sick.
I liked the unlocks in 3. I thought that was fun, like saving up points and stuff. But yes, I agree with you, Ben. It could have used a little more.
Is there anything you super don't want to see?
Super don't want to see. I don't want to see another versus Resident Evil game.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sick. It never really works out whenever they do it.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're gonna see the trailer. I think the movie trailer is extremely likely. I don't care.
Yeah,
I do not have high expectations for that, and it really has nothing to do with like the old film series. I just like, I don't know what you're gonna do in this world that I'm gonna be like, whoa, dude! I've never seen that in this massive universe that has so many characters. And frankly, when they did one remake, really like brought some interesting elements to that first story. It's like. I don't know. Just not something I need expanded in a narrative way.
It's so funny because like all the Resident Evil films, like Huber's like, yeah, I enjoy them for what they are, but there was one animated one where like Rebecca is a bride or something. He's like, don't watch it. And I think that's like the first time
he said it's trash.
Yeah, outside of Resident Evil 6, I guess, but the first time like he was like so aggressively pushing me away from a Resident Evil thing, which I thought was funny.
I was skeptical about the Castlevania anime, and
holy shit, yeah. Too bad that Dragon's Dogma anime was.
I'm just gonna keep those expectations low. That's where I want them right now.
Yeah,
so
it's
fingers crossed. We'll see.
I guess moving into Resident Evil 8, I think the big concern that I have, especially going off what they've already shown, like I don't know how big of a deal it's going to be, but I was kind of like shocked when they show. Chris killing Ethan's wife, and it's like maybe that would have been fun to like just see on my own. And so I'm like a little bit nervous because thinking about Resident Evil 7, like part of the fun is being surprised and seeing what's going to happen, both in terms of scenario and story, of course. Even though like I'm not a huge Resident Evil story person, it's like horror games especially, you kind of want to be surprised, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Seeing gameplay of this, like, are you worried that some of that fun is going to be taken away? Do you trust them with what they're going to show?
I mean, I think that's always a risk kind of with any gameplay thing. I feel like they'll show like very early parts of this game.
Mm-hmm.
Like I bet like that whole Chris and Mia thing is like the beginning of the game kind of thing like that. So that's a really big deal with me. And I feel like Resident Evil always has a lot of surprises.
Mm-hmm.
Like 7, a lot of surprises. So I think 8 will kind of go in the same way.
I'm super skeptical whenever like an established story is like, oh, that one character's bad now, and you're like, they're not.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Newsflash.
That's
spoilers.
A good point.
They're not.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, like there's gonna be some cutscene later where you're like, oh, you were the werewolf, Chris. Okay. Or like, oh, you were trying to get. Got it. I remember like Fast and Furious was like, dude, Vin Diesel's bad now. It's like he's not.
Bad.
You know, like, come on. And so like it's one thing if you want to tell that story, but like I'm nervous about the trailers leading up to it where they're just really pushing. Look how bad Chris is. You're like,
man, you know a really good recent example of that is when they showed like Dark Ray for Rise of Skywalker, and you're like, no, she's not. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spoilers. Well, because it's like you're guiding me in two different directions, and both of them suck. You know, either he's gonna repent, and then that was obvious, or he doesn't, and then oh, all right, bye, Chris. You know, so it's neither one has this. You know, kind of resolution, and so it's like it's cool, it's fine if you have it, but just don't like hang the entire campaign on it because then or the third option, which also sucks, which is it's not that big of a deal. You know, it's not as much of a story as you're expecting it to. It's like, well, then why'd you waste all this time, you know, building it up, you know, in the, you know, the months leading up to release. So not really focusing on that. And it doesn't seem that's what people are focusing on. They're really focused on like the coven and like these weird ladies and like the whole vampire.
Super tall vampire lady who seems awesome.
Yeah.
I think there's still enough mystery there. And I think, 7 was one of those games that was so solid. Like I trust him.
Yeah.
You know, like, oof, that, boy, did I play that game a lot.
Yeah.
So, same.
I think 8 is,
how spoiled are we? Like, that Resident Evil has been so goddamn good recently.
Yeah. It's been great.
Of course there's going to be a demo, right? Like there just is. Like it's not even a question. Do you think it's going to drop on the day of the showcase, or that they'll just like announce a date for it, or like what do you think? Not the release date for the game, but just specifically the demo.
I think the demo, if they do, it will be closer to the game's release.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah. And I think the demo is going to be like more in line how they did 7's, kind of like almost its weird own kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah. I really appreciated how they approached the demo for 7.
I think that'd be a cool idea.
I feel
but
like
I guess 3 wasn't. Sorry, I was going to say, I guess 3 Remake was just, it's same with 2, was just like the game.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I hope they shadow drop it. Always pulling for a shadow
that'd be cool.
drop. But...
Yeah, it'd be awesome. we'd all download it immediately.
Yeah.
I think it'll be like a week. I think it'll be like the week after. Not what I want. Of course, I want it like now. I want us to finish recording this podcast and we missed it. Oh,
yeah.
Maybe a little bit of an apples and oranges situation, but it is the same company because they had a Monster Hunter Rise event and then they released the demo like that same day. Of course, true. we're much closer. We don't have a date for Resident Evil 8 yet, and Resident Evil Rise, Monster Hunter Rise, it's right around the corner. That just made me think of like a Resident Evil game where you have a wire bug and you're just zipping around.
Sure,
dude.
I'd be into it.
I mean, you got a grappling hook in 4. Yeah, they could expand on that in a remake. You know,
that was actually one of the most enjoyable parts of World is all the crazy collaborations that they had. Yep. Like the Resident Evil event that they had in World was so much fun.
Cool.
Yeah, I can't wait for that kind of thing.
Put a Monster Hunter weapon in Resident Evil 8.
Dude,
give me
the
great sword.
Yeah, you're like fighting werewolves and vampires with the great sword.
Yeah.
Cool. Are we ready for some emails?
Yeah.
Hells yeah.
All right. Our first email comes in from Samuel, who says, Happy New Year, Ben and Allies. At the end of every year, I look forward to go discussions from my favorite outlets, especially Easy Allies. As someone outside of game coverage, however, I've started to notice how few of the major releases I actually play each year. In 2020, most of the games I played for the first time came out years ago. With that said, I wanted to give the Allies on Frame Trap a chance to share their favorite games that they played for the first time this past year that did not release in 2020. For me, Dark Souls and Bloodborne instantly catapulted themselves to top 10 all-time status, with honorable mentions going to Shovel Knight and Cuphead. Thanks, and have a great 2021.
I've played a lot of games this year, I gotta think.
I've got a couple that I can go through.
Oh, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So I've been obsessed with Star Wars, and I had never played through Republic Commando before. I just played through that very recently. It is fucking like I am
really
shocked
solid
at how good that game is. Yeah, I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I played Knights of the Old Republic when it came out, but I'd never finished it. I finished it for the first time last year, and I just recently played through Knights of the Old Republic 2, and I love that game. What it does with some of the themes of Star Wars is so goddamn cool, and really had a great time. So those are two that spring to mind.
I don't know if this counts, but I played Xenoblade Definitive Edition this year for the first time.
Yeah.
I know Definitive Edition came out this year, but the game itself is old.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
That was great.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Brad.
Yeah.
Couldn't invest a lot of time in it, but I finally bought Dragon Quest Inquisition. I got that on PC.
Dragon Age Inquisition.
Dragon Age. I was like, Dragon Age. Quest.
Yeah.
Inquisition. Sorry. Whoa.
Dragon Age Inquisition. And I think it's on Game Pass or something. I saw it somewhere for
I think
free
it
on the
is
service
because
that I
like
had.
the
And
EA
I was like, oh no, why did I buy it? Oh well.
Thing is on Game Pass. Yeah, but
sure.
Cool.
But yeah, I got it on that PC, and that's something that I know I will like.
Sure.
You know, even if there's issues I might have with the story or repetition or something, it's just like I loved 1 and 2 so much, and I played all the DLC, and it's just my jam.
Nice.
But I was like, gotta move on to other things. I was reviewing something, but I'll get back to it.
Our next email comes in from Caesar. Hello, Allies. I've been mostly a Nintendo fan all my life, so I knew I would buy a Switch eventually. But during E3 2007, when that Metroid Prime 4 announcement came, I knew I couldn't get a Switch any later
17?
than... Yeah, sorry, he said 2007. It is 2017. You're right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It has been a while, but not that long.
Yes. Yes. When the Metroid Prime 4 announcement came, I knew that I couldn't get a Switch any later than when that game came out. 3.5 years have passed since that announcement. It's been almost 2 years since we last heard from the game, that being the video saying that development had restarted on Retro and then nothing again. Do you believe this game will ever come out? Will it even come out on Switch? I'm starting to think that it'll be a transition game between Switch and whatever comes next, just like Breath of the Wild was for Wii U and Switch. So again, what are your current thoughts on Metroid Prime 4?
I think it'll definitely come out eventually. Yes. 100%. But it could be, I think it'll be a Switch game. But if I could see them, if this happens, being alongside the Switch Pro, like promoted with that more.
Sure.
But I think if you have a Switch, you will be able to play Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Literally, you describing that sounded like me before Animal Crossing came out, where I was just like, well, I guess we're not getting it. Like here we are, and it's amazing and it's
Right.
great, but I was like astonished that they were, it took as long as they did in the lifespan of the Switch to release it. And then it finally happened, and it's, the fastest selling game in Japan. And it's like, I think Nintendo's just not rushing anything because there's no reason to for them. And so I think, I think we'll probably get a new Mario game and a new Zelda before we get Metroid. But I think they're just completely taking their time with it, and they don't want to mess that up. They wanted that to be a big crowd pleaser.
Yeah, and if they have to restart the game from scratch, pretty much, it takes a while.
It's hard because with these predictions, especially with the pandemic, like I think it really throws a wrench in. Like I'm sure how well each individual company has been able to handle the pandemic changes, and so I'm not sure what their exact situation is, but I don't know. I have faith like 2022 doesn't seem crazy to me, but maybe that is crazy. I don't know.
No, because Nintendo kind of blindsides you sometimes.
Yeah,
like,
they definitely
just because you haven't heard something doesn't mean it won't get announced like next week and come out in like September.
Right.
You know, like that's kind of how they roll. And so,
right.
Yeah, I just think it's there's just no need. They just and it we're in the era where you can kind of sense that desperation. Like you can sense the need for Disney to let us know that Indiana Jones is coming. You know,
right.
It's like, no, that's important to us to let you know that deal was done, you know, or that Star Wars games is coming. You know, it's like they want to try to Ubisoft really wants to one up EA. They love that, you know, so like they would love to be like, haha, look, that thing that they didn't do, we're doing. Whereas Nintendo's like, nope, it is so much more, you know, so much more lucrative for us. It's such a better payoff for us to just hold our cards close to the chest and then full house. You're like,
Yeah.
Our last email comes in from Ryan, who says, "Greetings, Ben and crew. After the recent Game Awards trailer for Returnal, I found myself intrigued by the gameplay and world. I never really invested much time into a bullet hell shooter or even a roguelike game in the style of Returnal. With a close March release, I figure I would head to the PSN store and maybe pre-order. To my surprise, the game would have cost me 70 UK pounds. Comparison, throughout the PS4 generation, new PlayStation titles would cost 50 or 55 pounds. If this was God of War 2, I wouldn't hesitate the 70-pound price tag because it's a story I'm invested in along with a gameplay loop I enjoy. However, I couldn't pull myself to pre-order Returnal as it's a new IP and I don't have confidence that the game will be for me, leading me to most likely waiting for a sale. Could this price increase lead to studios taking less risks with genre or new IPs, or will Game Pass succeed in allowing gamers to experience a smaller title like the Medium Day 1 for no additional cost?"
I don't think it'll hinder, maybe not. Well, I mean, it could to an extent, but I think you'll keep seeing new things that are full price.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know like a ton about this game. We haven't seen like a ton. We've seen some of it, but maybe it's a little worrisome because it's Housemarque's like biggest game ever, and people don't know Housemarque that well.
Mm-hmm.
And it might not be like the narrative driven kind of thing that sells super well. So I understand the skepticism about it, and like even I'm skeptical. Like I don't really know a ton about the game.
Yeah, I think the fact that like Returnal exists at all is kind of like telling, and the fact that like it's been getting sort of the place that it's been getting in the presentation. And I think there are other games that you can point to along with this, where I think Sony is kind of in this position, this very fortunate position where they do have like surefire successes. You know, they have Last of Us under their belt. They have God of War. They have Spider-Man. They sort of have these things that have
They have guaranteed wins.
Yeah, they have guaranteed wins. And so I think while the increase in price definitely sucks for consumers, I think Sony is in a fortunate position where they can take risks, and I think you're going to see them do that. And I think they're already showing that they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see one person's mistake necessarily, or not a mistake, but just like you're saying, a risk. I don't see that generally affecting what other studios are going to do, you know, especially in long term, because you saw, you know, how, you know, I would hope Sony regretted their words and deeds in terms of how they handled No Man's Sky, like before it launched, in terms of like public perception of what that even was. And then like, yeah, we're in really good shape. So I think over time, you know, that worked out. Yeah, I think if anything, Sony can kind of get too cocky sometimes in terms of like, you know, their expectations of stuff. But when it comes to the risk taking of like a Microsoft versus a Sony, I definitely see Sony doing a lot more weird stuff.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot more trusting of studios to be who they are. And then because they know fans are going to just glom onto that and get really excited if they like a genre or like a studio. So
I'm actually really curious, and maybe the audience can provide some anecdotal evidence where, like, you know, Sony has really rightfully rallied behind its IP, and I think having things like the PlayStation Plus collection with your PS5. Like, I wonder how many people like maybe missed out on a big thing.
I'm sure a lot.
And then got a new PS5, were very excited about it, and then kind of dug into those games. How, like, if it just built up that player base even more.
Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah, think about how many people are just playing like God of War for the first time.
Yeah.
Or Bloodborne or something.
Man, I wish I could play God of War and Bloodborne for the first time. If that's
Same.
you, I'm very jealous.
Same.
But I think that is going to do it for emails and therefore Frame Trap. Thank you so much to my panelists, Brandon Jones and Bradley Ellis. If you would like to send in an email to the podcast, the address is askeasyallies@gmail.com. One more time, that is askeasyallies@gmail.com. And it's also going to be in the description of where, hopefully, wherever you're consuming this. And also, one final quick thing. All this stuff, Easy Allies, everything that we do is supported by you guys. Go to patreon.com/easyallies to find out more. Even just throwing $1 or $5 our way really helps. And there are benefits for all of those things. So if you are a $1 patron, you get access to a lot of our exclusive shows. If you're a $5 patron, you not only get this podcast, Frame Trap, but you also get the Easy Allies podcast a couple days early, if that is something that interests you. But regardless, thank you so much for watching. Until next time.